It's Monday, February 3rd, 2025. Some questions, some answers after two air disasters and back-to-back days. Let the trade games begin, and banning kitchen knives in the UK. Next on the AM Update.
I'm so tired of listening to things happen to our country and then people say we'll do an investigation and 3 years later they come out with a report that nobody looks at.
I am announcing 25% tariffs against $155 billion worth of American goods.
So looking ahead, should Kamala Harris run again?
Yes, she wants to.
We are going to fight it legislatively, and we're going to fight it in the streets.
Not all kitchen knives need to have a point on them. There is leaving a loophole for someone to carry a ninja sword. So let's ban them all, and if you have one of those knives, get a license for it.
The Department of Defense and the family have authorized the release of the identity of the third soldier on board that Black Hawk helicopter that crashed in Washington, D.C. It crashed into a commercial passenger jet. She's been identified as Captain Rebecca Lobach of Durham, North Carolina. She attended the University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill, and went through ROTC. Friends and family say she was a true patriot and loved her family. She reportedly had over 500 flight hours prior to that collision. 67 people are dead after that regional jet collided with that Black Hawk helicopter Wednesday night over Washington, D.C. It's the first major commercial airline crash in the United States since 2009. The aircraft went down over the frigid Potomac River, breaking into multiple pieces. The flight, which had departed from Wichita, Kansas, was approaching Reagan National Airport at the time of the collision. There were no survivors of the crash after officials previously said, or at least news outlets previously said on the night of the crash, that there were some survivors. 64 passengers on board the plane and 3 Army soldiers in the helicopter. Among those lost in the crash were 14 people who were returning home from a national figure skating development camp in Wichita, according to Doug Zigbee, CEO and executive director of the Skating Club of Boston. That was the first in back-to-back nights of air disasters over the United States. Donald Trump responded, saying that investigations alone aren't enough.
Mr. President, on the crash, do you have any concerns that your commentary about things you have described as common sense or your observations could in any way interfere with the thorough investigation of the crash?
No, I think they'll do an investigation. It'll probably come out the way I said it. I like to put it up front. I'm so tired of listening to things happen to our country and then people say we'll do an investigation and 3 years later they come out with a report that nobody looks at. Especially, not in all cases can you do that, but in this case, you had a helicopter that was, the Black Hawk was too high. It was above the 200 limit by double. It shouldn't have been there. And there were some other mistakes made, too, and I pointed them out also, and I was right on all of it, but they'll still do an investigation.
Trump was responding to allegations that his comments earlier over the weekend that maybe DEI or some other factors that really shouldn't be in play when it comes to aircraft and aviation safety could be considered in the investigation. And in this day and age, it's common sense to ask those types of questions. Meanwhile, though, in Philadelphia, officials say a total of 7 people have died and at least 19 people are injured after a medical transport plane carrying a pediatric patient, her mother, and 4 crew members crashed into a Philadelphia neighborhood on Friday night. The crash erupted into a fireball and engulfed nearby homes and cars in flames. The National Transportation Safety Board is still investigating. According to the FAA and U.S. Transportation Secretary Sean Duffy, 6 people were on board the Learjet 55. Jet Rescue Air Ambulance, that's a Mexican medical transport company, stated that there were 4 crew, a pediatric patient, and her escort on board. According to a spokesman for Jet Rescue Air Ambulance, the female pediatric patient was being taken back to Mexico after finishing treatment at the Shriners Hospital for Children in Philadelphia. All 6 on board were from Mexico. It was incredible on Friday night to watch the video roll in real time of this latest air disaster. What was even more stark is seeing a plane crash in America, and the first reaction you heard from some of the video that you saw circulating in the immediate aftermath sounded like this.
Allahu Akbar! Allahu Akbar!
Yeah, that's real. That's in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. The immediate reaction after an air disaster, seeing a great ball of flame, is having bystanders standing around and shouting, Allahu Akbar. Even in the year 2025, that is just jarring. I don't think there's very much more that you can say than that. In other news, the Trump administration announced Saturday it's imposing tariffs through its new International Emergency Economic Powers Act. President Donald Trump signed an executive order authorizing the tariff Saturday, which will go into effect Tuesday, consisting of 25 25% additional tariffs on imports from Canada and Mexico, and a 10% tariff on imports from China. Energy resources from Canada will have a lower 10% tariff, according to the White House. In a statement obtained by media outlets on Saturday, the Trump administration said the legislation is in response to an extraordinary threat posed by illegal aliens and drugs, including deadly fentanyl, that constitutes a national crisis. In response to these new tariffs, Canadian Prime Minister Justin Castro said,
"Tonight, I am announcing Canada will be responding to the U.S. trade action with 25% tariffs against $155 billion worth of American goods. This will include immediate tariffs on $30 billion worth of goods as of Tuesday, followed by further tariffs on $125 billion worth of American products in 21 days' time to allow Canadian companies and supply chains to seek to find alternatives."
Unfazed, Trump responded to Justin Castro in a post on Truth Social Sunday morning saying, quote, "We pay hundreds of billions of dollars to subsidize Canada. Why? There's no reason. We don't need anything they have. We have unlimited energy, should make our own cars, and have more lumber than we can ever use. Without this massive subsidy, Canada ceases to exist as a viable country. Harsh but true. Therefore, Canada should become our cherished 51st state, much lower taxes and far better military protection for the people of Canada, and no tariffs." Well, it's being reported that Canada and Mexico now are working together to impose tariffs on American exports into those two countries, with some Canadian provinces saying they're targeting Republican-led states, trying to hurt them the most with their new tariffs against American exports. Now, if you just crunch the numbers in a very broad way, I'm sure there's a lot of details, probably 100 different details and ways you could slice this. A trade war, a tariff war, even Mexico and Canada against the United States. Yes, United States citizens will be paying more, but it's much more absorbable than especially Canada and Mexico. So I'm not really sure where this is all headed. I'm not really sure. I think Donald Trump just wants better trade deals. And he said it in his post. There's no reason why we need to import energy from Canada, import lumber from Canada. We can do that all ourselves. Why are we giving them this massive trade advantage when we can do all of that ourselves? So again, I don't know how this all will play out, but I do know America and Americans are probably in a much better position of actually being able to withstand and see through a trade war. Ultimately, if Donald Trump doesn't blink, this should be a long-term plan, a long-term ploy to incentivize manufacturing, production, and exports of goods here at home to the rest of the world. That should be the long-term goal, because that means better jobs and more jobs for Americans. We'll see who blinks first. The Democrat National Committee on Saturday elected Minnesota Party leader Ken Martin, who once called for President Donald Trump to be tried for treason, as its next national chair in the wake of the party's disastrous performance in the November elections. The election of Martin is the party's first formal step to try and rebound from the November elections, in which Donald Trump recaptured the White House and Republicans flipped the Senate and held on to the House. After he was elected as DNC chair, Martin had these words.
Let me just start by saying we have one team. One team.
That's right.
The Democratic Party. We have one fight. We have one fight. The fight's not in here. The fight's out there, right? The fight's not in here. The fight is for our values. The fight is for working people. The fight right now is against Donald Trump and the billionaires who bought this country. That's the fight, not in here. I want to thank all of you. Thank you to the DNC members who have put their faith in my vision for our party. I am honored and humbled.
So that is Ken Martin. As far as I can tell, he has absolutely no private sector experience. He began his career in politics at the age of 17 or 18 and has never really worked in any other industry, if you can call it that, than politics. But Ken Martin does come from what was a purple state and is now reliably blue in Minnesota. So maybe the Democrats are banking on the notion that he knows how to talk to blue-collar Democrats, blue-collar workers, kind of the everyday man. But I have doubts after seeing how the rest of the Democrat National Convention meeting actually shook out. Here is former DNC chair Jamie Harrison talking to CBS News about Kamala Harris and whether she should run again.
So looking ahead, should Kamala Harris run again?
Yes, she wants to.
You think she could win?
I believe she can. I mean, if I didn't believe Kamala Harris could win, I wouldn't have worked as hard as I did to help her win this last time around. You know, Donald Trump And when you look at politics, Donald Trump and Barack Obama are just enigmas in politics. I think they do something different to the electorate every time they run that you can't counter. But then when they are not on the ballots, it's almost like you go back to the political gravity pulls people right back into it. That's part of how we won with how well we did in the midterms.
Good luck with that. That's former DNC chair Jamie Harrison talking about how, yeah, sure, Kamala should run again. And here's why I'm saying good luck. This is not just a knock on his analysis. Well, it is a knock on his analysis. I mean, you never have Donald Trump to begin with without three people in chronological order: John McCain, Barack Obama, and Mitt Romney. Okay? You never even get to Donald Trump without those three figures and what they did and did not do in the case of the two Republicans. So that's just bat poop crazy wish casting. Here's another moment from the DNC meeting in Washington, D.C. over the weekend. This is the DNC Chair Forum, where every single candidate for DNC Chair, before they went with Ken Martin from Minnesota, every single candidate blamed their loss last year on racism and misogyny.
In this round, so I'm going to, I have a show of hands. How many of you believe that racism and misogyny played a role in Vice President Harris's defeat?
Every single individual. There's 8 individuals, 8 Democrat Party leaders on that stage. Every single one raised their hands. That was just a taste. That was just a taste of what went down at this DNC meeting over the weekend, where they ended up selecting Ken Martin from Minnesota as the new DNC chair. Again, good luck with that. Good luck. If you really think that you can revert back, and maybe you can, it worked for a long time. It seems to have broken in the last election. But if you really think that you can just revert to calling everybody a misogynistic, homophobic, racist, xenophobe, Nazi, if that's the leadership in the party and they really don't care about how to talk to normal people, the 85% of people outside of the 15% of counties that Hillary Clinton won back in 2016, that's the Democrat Party of these days. It's 15% of people, really. 15% of counties, I should say. Good luck with that. Again, good luck with that. Nevertheless, the Trump administration has to lead and they have to win going forward. And so far, I think they're doing just that. When we come back, we're going to talk about one Senator John Thune. He's talked tough, but over the weekend, he wilted a little bit. Donald Trump keeps on winning, striking ISIS and issuing a warning. And one British actor says we need to ban kitchen knives. That's coming up next.
And so really, I think the question before the House is, do we want to vote on these folks on Tuesday or vote on them on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday? Because that's what we're going to do. This can be easy or this can be hard.
That is Senate Majority Leader John Thune. I featured that clip just a few weeks ago saying, hey, he's talking tough. Let's see if he follows through. Well, I've got news for you. On Thursday, Senate Majority Leader John Thune released senators for a long weekend, and they're not reconvening until 3 p.m. this afternoon, so I'm not sure what happened to that tough talk of we can do this the easy way or we can do this the hard way, we can do this on weekends, we can do this working the nights. I'm not sure what happened to that, but it seemingly went poof. Nevertheless, Donald Trump struck ISIS this weekend. He said in a post on Truth Social Saturday morning, "This morning I ordered precision military airstrikes on the senior ISIS attack planner and other terrorists he recruited and led in Somalia. These killers, who we found hiding in caves, threatened the United States and our allies. The strikes destroyed the caves they live in and killed many terrorists without in any way harming civilians. Our military has targeted this ISIS attack planner for years, but Biden and his cronies wouldn't act quickly enough to get the job done. I did. The message to ISIS and all others who would attack Americans is that we will find you and we will kill you." That is Donald Trump on Truth Social on Saturday morning. The winning doesn't end there. The Trump administration has told top officials at the FBI, resign or lose your jobs. The exact number has not been disclosed, but the ultimatum was allegedly given to senior employees promoted under former FBI Director Chris Chris Wray. President Donald Trump's administration took these steps as his nominee. To lead the Bureau, Kash Patel said he would not begin his tenure with retribution or focus on past transgressions. He said that during his confirmation hearing last week. According to reporting from the New York Times, an email to colleagues from one of the senior agents outlined that he had learned he would be dismissed from the roles of the FBI as soon as this morning. And then there's this. Government employees are now being required to remove their preferred pronouns from email signatures following an executive order from President Donald Trump. Among the flurry of executive orders issued by Trump was one proclaiming that there are only two genders and another pledging to end diversity, equity, and inclusion policies in the federal government. Workers were given until 5 p.m. on Friday to delete their preferred pronouns. So the winning just keeps going on. Probably why House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries threatened violence over the weekend.
We are going to fight it legislatively. We are going to fight it in the courts. And we're going to fight it in the streets.
Fight it in the streets. Okay, let's not pretend here. Let's not give him the benefit of the doubt. He's going to fight the Trump agenda in the courts, legislatively, and, quote, in the streets. That means violence. That means Summer of Love, George Floyd. That's what Hakeem Jeffries, the House Minority Leader, is calling for, violence. I hope once Kash Patel gets confirmed, and I think he will get confirmed, I hope that maybe Hakeem Jeffries gets put on a terrorist watch list, at least. You might have heard of this story. The fatal shooting of a Vermont Border Patrol agent on Inauguration Day has been tied to a radical leftist cult whose members claim to identify as transgender. Border Patrol agent David Chris Mayland, 44 years old, was tragically shot and killed while performing a traffic stop on Interstate 91 in Coventry, Vermont on January 20th. Teresa Milo Youngblood, a 21-year-old Washington state resident and the driver of the vehicle, is accused of fatally shooting Mayland. She currently faces 2 charges of assault with a deadly weapon and an additional charge of resisting or impeding federal law enforcement. Felix Ophelia Bacalt, a German national, was a passenger in Youngblood's vehicle and was shot and killed during the altercation. Post-millennials Andy No reported that both Youngblood and Bacalt identified as transgender. According to authorities, the guns in Youngblood's and Bacalt's possession were owned by a person of interest in other murders. Court filings read, quote, her, Youngblood's, associations with other individuals suspected of violent acts also warrants caution. The court filing appears to be referring to Michelle Jacqueline Zaksho, a bioinformatics researcher who claims to identify as transgender or non-binary. Zaksho's parents, Rita and Richard Zaksho, were killed in early 2023. The circumstances surrounding their deaths remains unsolved. So if you thought ever I came in here with another instance of trainee terrorism, and we've seen multiple instances over the past couple of years, and I said this is trainee terrorism, and you thought, oh, Aaron, that's over the top. Well, it seems like now the shooting of the Border Patrol agent on Inauguration Day in Vermont, that was carried out by a couple of people, or one person who was a part of a terrorist cell of so-called transgenders. So no, it's not over the top. No, it's not inaccurate. No, we're not just saying that for effect. Trainee terrorism is real, and it must be snuffed out. When we come back, the nation's report card is out, and it's not good. And one actor from the United Kingdom says we need to ban kitchen knives. That's coming up next. The National Assessment of Educational Process, the largest continuing and nationally representative assessment of American students' knowledge and capability in math, reading, science, and writing, has released its 2024 assessment, also called the Nation's Report Card. The results were bleak. Last year, the average reading score for both 4th and 8th grade students nationwide was 2 points lower than in 2022 and 5 points lower than the score for 2019. According to the NAEP report card that relies on an assessment of hundreds of thousands of kids, the 2024 reading scores for 4th grade students were lower at 4 of the 5 selected percentiles, namely the 10th, 25th, 50th, and 75th percentiles compared to 2022 percentile scores. When it came to 8th grade students, their grades were lower at 10th, 25th, and 50th percentiles compared to the scores in 2022. White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt had these words about the National Report Card.
The National Report Card showed that 70% of 8th graders were below proficient in reading, and 40% of 4th graders did not even meet the basic reading levels. This is completely unacceptable to the president, and he continues to take aggressive actions to address this education problem in our country. He signed an executive order this week prohibiting federal funding of the indoctrination of our children. including radical gender ideology and critical race theory in the classroom. The president believes American education should focus on cultivating patriotic citizens who are ready for the workforce.
I'm not one that believes in abandoning the public schools in your local community, but I completely get, and this is the path that my family is probably going to take as well, with homeschooling. You can homeschool and not abandon the public school in your own neck of the woods. You can do both things at the same time. And for every lefty that says, I'm not going to homeschool, or you're kooky for homeschooling, your kids are going to be socially awkward, your kids are going to be weird, well, to them I say, well, at least my kids are going to be able to spell socially awkward and spell the words weird. That's all I got. And now here's this. Here is well-known actor Idris Elba. He's got a new documentary out called Idris Elba, Our Knife Crime Crisis. Here's a clip from an interview where he talks about his new documentary.
The truth is that kitchen knives are perhaps 25% of the knives used in most of the terrible crimes. That's one of the stats in the films. And those kitchen knives are usually a domestic situation. Okay? So kitchen knives, of course, it's very difficult. They're a domestic knife. I do think there is areas of innovation that we can do with kitchen knives. I hate to say it, not all kitchen knives need to have a point on them. That sounds like a crazy thing to say, but actually it would reduce. You know, you can still cut your food without the point on the knife, which is an innovative way to sort of look at it. And in a country in crisis, I'm sorry, but yeah, let's look at that. But the truth is, all knives, you know, the loophole on the heritage knives allows the sale of ninja swords to be sold. So while, you know, you've got your granddad's sword on there and you want that, that's fine, of course, but it is leaving a loophole for someone to carry a ninja sword. So let's ban them all. And if you have one of those knives, get a license for it. Simple as that. And I think it's a small contribution to society if you say, all right, I'm going to back that. I'll get a license for my granddad's sword, because it is leaving, you know, these kids vulnerable.
Actor Idris Elba on his new documentary, Our Knife Crime Crisis. And finally, air analysis, slightly acidic, mostly necessary. Of course, that documentary Idris Elba is talking about there is focused on the United Kingdom, where, of course, knife crime is rampant. Chemical attacks, rampant. Why? Because they don't have the Second Amendment. That's why. Now, when we talked about countries like Australia and the United Kingdom, and their efforts, successfully so, to ban guns from the average citizen, the average law-abiding citizen, we would always appeal to the absurd and say, what are you going to do? Ban kitchen knives, butter knives next? What are you going to do? Ban letter openers? What are you going to do? Ban bleach? Well, now it seems to Idris Elba, the answer to that question is yes. Regulating different household objects like this, after getting rid of any semblance of the Second Amendment, any semblance of self-defense via firearms. Appealing to the absurd used to be just satire. It used to be jokes that we made. Now we're hearing from a prominent actor, a prominent British actor. No, this needs to be reality. You need to get a license for that knife in your drawer. And then we will achieve utopia. There's this from James Kirkpatrick as well. In case you're wondering who Idris Elba is, he had a small role in The Office. Here are some of his other roles that he's well known for. He played a super badass, sophisticated black drug dealer. Probably had a gun. Yes, he did. Then an African warlord in one of his next roles. Then Heimdall, who carried a large knife, or a large sword, if I'm not mistaken, in the Thor movies. And then Shield journalists, Shield for himself to play the next James Bond, who's been known to use a few firearms himself. And now he's saying that the British people should not be allowed to use kitchen knives without a license. And if they do own knives, they can't have a pointy end. That's absurd. To the lefty mind, the unmoored mind, absurdity is reality, and absurdity will become reality unchecked. That's it for Monday. Back at it again tomorrow. I'm Aaron McIntyre, and this is the AM Update. Just wanted to say, postscript here, thank you so much for all your thoughts and prayers. I know, man, I was just blown away by not only the thoughts and prayers, and I appreciate that, and my entire family appreciate that for the last week, but I was blown away with how many people are saying the same thing about the stomach bug or norovirus this year. It's, there's a bunch of stomach bugs, but norovirus is the big one, and that just tore through our family late last week. And you heard Ben's commentary at the end of the last episode that we did. That was for Thursday, and everybody's doing much better now. The effects are still there, but I was just blown away by how many people said, yeah, I've been down with this for the last 2 weeks. I had that years ago. I've never forgotten it. I've had it this year. Somebody said to me they had it, their entire family had it over Christmas, and they're going to be remembering that Christmas for all the wrong reasons. So I totally feel you. A lot of people going through that this time of the year. So I appreciate all the thoughts and prayers, and thanks for understanding being out both on Friday for the AM update to Ask or Tell Me Anything, and on Saturday for No Suck Saturday. Hope we'll be back with full strength and full order in this coming week. Thanks again for understanding. Hope you have a wonderful week.